So welcome everyone. Happy Thursday. Today we have Lynette Sorrentino. She is here to speak to us. She's a coach. Your business was chaos, or is chaos to boss.
Correct.
And so she's going to talk about her experience, really some of her experiences that she's had with entrepreneurs, and then we'll have some time, of course, for question and answer at the end. But as always, we'll introduce ourselves, and then Lynette, you'll have a chance to get started.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, floor is yours.
Floor is mine, okay.
Get started.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad to see everyone and very excited to be here today. I gave a lot of thought about what is it that I can share that could be the most relevant and beneficial for you. As Patty knows, we've known each other for 20 plus years. I'm a talker. So I never have any trouble talking. It's what do I talk about, that's relevant to help you. So I thought I would share a little bit of my entrepreneur journey and how I happened to get started and some of that where I've gone. And then perhaps some lessons that I've learned or some tips I might be able to offer to you. And then we'll open up for questions. Sound good? So we were talking about where I lived. I grew up in the panhandle of Nebraska in Sydney. Anybody know where Sydney is out there? Because we all know Cabela's, right? That's how we know about that. So I grew up out there. I was one of those people who wanted to be good at whatever I did. So in high school, I started taking business classes. I could type really fast, so I decided to be a secretary. No one told me you weren't going to make a whole lot of money. And I had ambitions greater than that, so I decided to get into sales because I observed that it was the only place that a woman could make as much money as a man without a college degree. So I pursued sales. The first one was when I was working out at Lincoln Equipment Company, which is now Nebraska Machinery, Caterpillar dealership. And I was working for all these salespeople and started doing some sales there. And then the real sales job came in the long distance business. Some of you are too young for this, but it is when you dialed 10 different digits to save money on your long distance service. Anybody remember that? So that was the first jaunt. We had a Lincoln office, then I became the sales manager for the Lincoln, Omaha, and Des Moines offices. Then they moved me out to Denver, and I became the director of sales and training in my late 20s, which all I did was just put one foot in front of the other and figure out as I go, because no one knew anything about the industry, so I just figured it out. Had never been in sales before, figured it out, and then just started writing a training manual and trying to hire people and all of that. Then the Denver economy tanked, and I moved back home to Nebraska to start over and started selling radio advertising. Selling air, that is not an easy thing to do. And that's when life really took a significant turn in that, like I said, I'm an ambitious person, but also family is really, really, really important to me. I grew up with a lot of time with my parents and with my siblings and especially my grandparents, and that was just my expectation and my value system. So I just had this little light bulb click when I went to the radio station and I saw my boss who was there before I got there in the morning at 8 o'clock, and he was still there when I left at 5. And I went, how's this going to work when I get married and have kids? Just didn't resonate with me. And ironically, one of my radio station clients had just started Mary Kay. We sat down and had a conversation, and within about a week, I was becoming a consultant. I purely looked at the business opportunity and said, if I can make that much money, I'll make myself like the stuff. And that was the attitude that I took. I wasn't using the product, I hadn't fallen in love with it, any of those things. So, and that's how, Patty and I met eons of years ago. And within 6 months, I was working 3 jobs and 60 hours a week at the time. Within 6 months, I'd quit everything and was doing Mary Kay full time. And I moved to the top 5% of the company, earned 14 company cars, including 7 pink Cadillacs, moved my business from Lincoln to Kansas City, met my kid's dad there. We lived there for 10 years, then moved to Washington State for 5, and then life fell apart. And life fell apart because, for lots of reasons. We didn't have a lot of family support. My dad passed away in 2007, and I realized everything I'd given up for my marriage, and I still was very unhappy. So I made some moves that everybody thought was unpopular. They thought I was going through a midlife crisis at 50. Which there's maybe a little bit of that, because you have a birthday milestone, and you start thinking and evaluating, well, where am I going, and is this all there is? And people make pivots when there's life circumstances. And I turned 50. My dad passed away in September, and then my son, beginning of December, was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic. That still makes me cry. Sorry, didn't know that was there. And I just decided it's time to move back to Nebraska. You know, God said move back. My mom was now a widow. And I did that with a lot of unpopular decisions, and what ended up happening was that I moved here without my kids. I tried to bring them with me, it backfired, but I knew if I didn't move, nothing was going to change but my address when I was out there. And I couldn't be the mom that I needed to be because of the type of marriage that it was, and just unhealthy. So I chose to, did Mary Kay for a bit, but I struggled a lot out in Washington State. A lot of it was because of family things, but also, oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. But you know, Washington State's pretty organic and granola, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't remember how much, I didn't sell any eyeshadow, for heaven's sakes. I was lucky if I could get people to wash their faces. So, I mean, really, you know. So bottom line is I needed a change. And there was a network marketing company that came through Omaha, and people making as much money after 6 months as I was making in Mary Kay after 25 years. And pardon my expression, it pissed me off. I was really, really mad. I said, what's the deal? And you know, and I think I was at a point where I was under a lot of emotional stress. I was under a lot of financial stress. We were, you know, the divorce was 6 figures in attorney's fees. There's just a lot of dynamic going on there, and I was searching for something different. So I went to my mom's at Harlan County Reservoir for 30 days and just said, I gotta circle back and figure out what I'm gonna do here. And I took a job selling credit card processing. They were gonna get leads for me and help me get going, and so I said, I'm gonna do that. And it was a good shift. It got me my mojo back. I got my confidence back. There's another whole story that goes with that if we have time, but got my mojo back, get back on my feet financially, and started having fun again, and just getting back financially that I could do the things I wanted to. But the thing that I noticed was, you know, the reason I joined Mary Kay because I wanted to be able to be like the stay-at-home mom and still make really good money. And my kids didn't think that I worked when they were young. They thought, you know, mom needs to get a job because I had all that freedom and flexibility. But then I go into credit card processing and I saw all these business owners who were running around with their hair on fire. They were in this treadmill of hustle and grind and working 60 and 80 hours a week. And it wasn't just because they were new. They maybe had a business for 5 or 10 years. But they were never present. They were in divorce court, just like I saw with my boss at the radio station, because they were doing it for their family or doing it for a variety of reasons, but they weren't getting their why fulfilled. They weren't being able to go to the events with their kids. They, you know, there was just a lot of sacrifices, and I went, there's a better way to do this. And when I reflected back in Mary Kay, it was actually something that my daughter said as I was starting to marinate on these thoughts. We had a team event with the credit card company, and we were at a water park event place in Omaha. And my daughter was talking to some of my coworkers and stuff, and she said to me one day, this is when she was in high school, she said, Mom, when I get bored, I stalk you on Facebook. And I said, oh, really? And then she went to, you need to do some mentoring or something like that. And I said, well, why do you say that? And she goes, because I stalk you on Facebook and I listened to what your coworkers and said. She goes, Mom, you're changing people's lives. You need to go help more people. And I went, well, first of all, that was the payback from leaving her behind and her brother behind.
I thought you were going to say that was the payback for those really hard years for raising a daughter.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know, and she was the easy one, the son was the hard one, you know, so my son moved here in 2016, and as an adult, she moved here when she graduated from high school, so now both my kids are here in Nebraska with me. So we celebrate a lot of that, but that got me to thinking, because one of the things I loved the most as a director with Mary Kay in that leadership role was mentoring and coaching my consultants. I wanted to be a teacher when I was a kid. That's, you know, and so it all circled back, kind of full circle. It was just I'm a better teacher to adults than I am to kids, okay? So that full circle went back, and I was looking at all these business owners that I'm talking to in credit card processing, and I went, I want to be able to help them. I want to go out and start coaching and doing business because I know I can help them. But then I went, well, it's all in my head. How do I create a coaching program? I didn't even know where to start, and how to create a curriculum or market it or anything. And then COVID happened. And I was able to spend a lot of time on Zoom calls and investing in some other coaching programs showing me how to build a coaching business. And Chaos to Boss was born. And that was in 2020. So now a lot of what I do with businesses owners is I've got a couple of programs for businesses that are brand new startup businesses, and I make it that at a super low price point because I just think business owners deserve to be able to have a low price point, just like what you guys are doing here with the incubator. It's helping people, lift them up and help them get growing. And I wanted to do that from a coaching perspective. But I've also got a lot of seasoned business owners that want to be able to make a shift and change, whether it's to be able to get control of the busyness, or they know they need to make the next leap. They want to grow and scale, but they know they need to make changes here so that the growing and scaling can go up. So that's a lot of what I do. So I was thinking about how can I best serve the people that come to this event. And I was thinking about, I think when I listened to a lot of the wonderful programs that are out there to assist business owners, ones I know of in Omaha, what you've got here, you've got the SBA, you've got all of that. I think a lot of what gets covered, which I 100% validate, is, financial stuff, it's creating a business plan, there's a lot of stuff that's there. What I don't hear people talk about, and the feedback I get from my clients, is this part. People we've been employees, our lives. We've all had jobs. We've all been at a place where we are told where to go and what to do and what time. It happens from the time that we're going to daycare as babies, and then we go to school, and then we go to college, and then we do our jobs. We've not been always taught to be independent thinkers. So we don't make that transition always from employee to entrepreneur, and there's a whole different mindset that shifts with that. It's about not only working in the business, but working on the business, looking at things as an investment versus a debt. Consumer debt isn't good, business investment is good. You follow my difference? But people don't make that mental shift a lot. They're afraid to spend money. Well, then don't be an entrepreneur, bluntly. You got to be willing to spend money and invest in yourself. And a lot of the money that I've invested has been with coaches and mentors to help me get to that next spot, to learn, because I believe that, and I've observed personally, the more I grow as a person and develop myself personally, then the business grows concurrently. It all goes together. The other thing that I observed with the mindset piece was, in addition to that, was, I alluded to earlier, is business owners don't always focus on the right things. Because as an employee, a lot of times it's like, this is your role and there's a specific hole that your role, task, job, that your job description that you have. And so a lot of it is just working through whatever is given to you. It's working through the task list. It's working through the project. And there's a different mindset than focusing on what's going to move the needle financially, what's going to grow the revenue in the business. And a revenue generating activity can be quite different than just your to-do list. And that's one of the biggest things I see with people. In Mary Kay, we used to always call them income producing activities, or IPAs. And I happen to like craft beer, so now I say, well, if you do your IPAs, you can have your IPA. So those are the two main things that I find a lot with business owners. There's always the sales piece, and people are afraid to sell. If you're going to have a business, you're selling, because you got to sell yourself first. You may not want to have the sales role of the company, but if you can't sell yourself and your idea and sell your business, then you got to embrace that in some way, and then get yourself to a point where you could hire someone who's that salesperson.
Because when you start off, you're the everything.
You're the everything, exactly. So that also goes into the time and money management piece, where if you look at it time management standpoint, you are wearing multiple hats. And especially when people work from home, and maybe it could happen a little bit here where it's easy to get around the banter and the chatter here, and then it's like, oh, I need to really get back to work. Or, there's distractions. And so how you handle your distractions, how you put on the financial hat, and you take it back off. and then you put on the marketing hat and you take it back off, and then you put on the COO, CFO, the owner hat and take it back off. At home, clock in and then clock out at lunch, and then maybe do the dishes or do the laundry. I see so many business owners who are trying to run a business and do all the housework at the same time. Can't do it. Every time you get distracted, it takes 20 minutes to get back to center. So what is your time worth? And if you look at, you just wasted 20 minutes, all those distractions, those notifications on your phone, all of those things can be very, 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 very expensive.
We read a book that talked about the distraction. Do any of you remember what that percentage was?
The one thing.
Yes.
Can't remember the percentage, but like a fourth of your week, something like that. Quarter of your week, just getting back focused after being distracted.
Yeah. As simple as like what you said, a text message or an email that wasn't work related, to get back to where you need to be.
Yeah.
And that doesn't take into consideration the time that you're at the water cooler or
Yes.
at the old school or you're talking to a colleague.
Right.
But we find too that a lot of entrepreneurs that want to start out, they have a full-time job, and it's so hard and takes so much to take that step to go from a full-time job where you're an employee
Yes.
to being your own boss.
Yeah.
But when you can do that, amazing things can happen.
And there's one thing that always has to happen there, and there's an HVAC guy up in Omaha that we had a conversation, and I honestly don't want to know what it was I said, other than I nudged him, because he was doing some HVAC stuff on the side while working with somebody else. So maybe it was 3 or 4 days work for the guy, and then he was doing like a day or day and a half a week on his own. And he was really wanting to get on his own, and we had some conversations, and I said, well, what's stopping you? Are you still getting calls? Do you have more calls than you have time? And I said, well, then just do it. I kind of just like nudged him and said that. And really, you have to take that leap of faith and trust in yourself. You cannot wait until you totally replace that income, because it just usually isn't scalable enough to be able to do that. You've got to make that step. I had not totally replaced my income when I left the radio station job and went to Mary Kay, but I also knew that that was going to be what I needed to amp up my activity and my commitment, and because we can get comfortable financially, and so that's where sometimes when we have to make the money, it forces us to do things that we wouldn't normally do.
Right, and I agree that those activities that as an entrepreneur you put on your I don't really like to do list, if you're also working full-time someplace else, those get even pushed down further.
Yeah.
Which are very important activities to get your business up and going that can be put on the back burner.
Yeah. I wanted to bring something out. This is why I pulled my phone and my calculator out. So I want you to think about this. Let's say that it seems like a lot of money, but yet it's not a lot of money. But let's say that this year you want to make $100,000. And let's assume that you're going to work 2,000 hours in the year, because you're going to have 8 to 5, 40 hours. You're going to work 50 weeks. Let's just use some round numbers. So if I took 100,000, divide it by 2,000 hours, that means your time is worth $50 an hour. So where I'm going to lead into that is what I call my 4 pillars. But that $50 an hour, anything that you can hire that's going to cost you less than $50 is what you need to be doing, because you're spending dollar time doing penny work. Does that make sense? So hiring a virtual assistant, people say, well, I can't afford it. You are worth $50 an hour. Yes, you can. Go make more money with that $50 and hire other people to do those things. Because usually the person you're hiring is way better at than you are anyway, because you're procrastinating and you're kicking it down the road and don't want to do it. That's why it's at the bottom of the list, is because you're not good at it. You're not. So go find somebody else to do it who's like that lights them up. You may not be able to relate to it, but that's what lights them up. I am learning to do more stuff with videos and videos and stuff like that to grow my coaching business, instead of doing social media, because I hate to write. I don't like to physically write. But let me talk. I can do it all the time, right? So let's use that. Bill, so work in your strength. So one thing I'll mention that I developed through the course of creating Chaos to Boss, which I also, in working the full-time job and high pressure sales job, son who has health issues, building a business I've built. I was in that same circle as I was building Mary Kay a long time ago, right? I actually created my planner because I needed to be able to compartmentalize and figure out how I was going to do things. And as I built my coaching business, there's what I call my 4 cornerstones. And I used to call them my pillars, but I really think they're the cornerstones, particularly when you're starting your business. And the mindset piece is key. And that's a day-to-day thing that I'll elaborate on here in a minute. But mindset is like the one that you create everything square from. Does that make sense? Because if you're building a building, everything has to be square. The mindset is the place where you use build the square. Then you've got to have preparation. Then you have to have elimination. And then you have to have containment. So the preparation is planning, is doing a lot of planning, not only for the year, but for the quarter, but also for the month, but also planning your week, planning your day. So many people do not plan, and they're just working out of reactive mode and going by the seat of their pants and try to remember everything in their brain. Your mind can only remember 7 things at a time. So if you're not writing things down and putting it in one place, no sticky notes, because all that does is distract you because we can't focus on one thing. A to-do list, it's like, where do you focus? Because you got all these things to do. So it's about the planning and preparation. Then the elimination piece would be, what can you automate? What can you delegate? What do you need to just say no to? It's all of the elimination to take stuff off your plate so you can focus on doing what you do best. I said this, one of my first mentors in sales said, do what you do best and hire everybody else to do the rest. And it is 1,000% true. So that's where the elimination piece comes in. And then the 4th one is the containment piece. How many of you, ladies, I know we can relate to this. We can say, you know what, Saturday morning, I'm going to just take Saturday and I'm just going to clean out the closets and I'm going to reorganize and clean the house, right? So maybe we're just saying we're just going to spend all day doing that. But then Friday night at 5 o'clock, one of your friends says, hey, Saturday afternoon, we're doing a tailgate. You want to come with us? Sure. All of a sudden, you got all your housekeeping done. Instead of 8 hours, you got it all done in 3 hours so you could go tailgate, right? It's the law of containment. The task will expand for the amount of time that you allow for it. So when it comes to projects, whether it's accounting or marketing or things that are the creative or the project piece, be very specific, and even if it's just responding to emails. Or like I say, I'm going to make 30 minutes worth of phone calls today. I compartmentalize that and work it on and put it in my calendar. And so if you look at my calendar, you're going to see that there are. Let me go back to this week. Can you see all the little time blocks in there? And they're color coded. The colors are for different roles in my life, but as well as they're color coded not only for appointments, but for specific time blocks of when I'm going to do something, so that you are very specific and intentional with it. And if you say it's going to take me an hour, you will get it done in an hour, rather than just whenever you get it done, because part of it is the distractions, and then you go on Facebook, or you go get some water, you go to the bed. You know where I'm going. So those are the 4 cornerstones and when you start that off when you're new, then as your tasks grow, as your roles grow, as you hire people, you can really scale it and stack on top of it. But these are the 4 cornerstones you got to have in place so that you can grow and stack and grow and scale your business. And as you have employees, then those things become a ripple effect that you become part of your overall, how your company grows and becomes part of your culture. So, one other quick thing that I was thinking about. I remember someone saying this at a retreat once. Because I think as business owners, we get so excited when something good happens, but then we everything rises and falls on any one event. We don't always look at it as a growing process. So at any one point in time in my first few days, weeks, months as an entrepreneur, I could be like an EKG, like this. You know, I got a sale and this happened and then this happened and then this happened, and I was like, this is as far as, you know, and that's good as far as your heart, but it's not good with your mindset. I needed to level out and take the rejections and not get so emotionally invested in them, maybe not get so excited about the wins and just say, hey, of course, you know? So the quote that someone said to me once was, when you get in control of your emotions, you get in control of your paycheck. And I think that could be your negative emotions. I think it could be, you know, I'm an emotional person, I cry. I used to cry at commercials, you know, I've regulated that out, but emotions drive us a lot. And if you are naturally a negative person, and I grew up in a negative environment, I had to get a lot more positive. If you are someone who's got a lot of negative people around you, or perhaps there's a lot of imposter syndrome, which happens a lot for entrepreneurs. There's self-doubt. There's, like I said, people, you know, I didn't have a lot of family supportive of me when I got started. There's a lot of things with our mindset that we maybe naturally just don't have those good mental habits. I learned the more that I invested and made part of my daily schedule, quiet time, meditation, all of those things, the more I employed that into my life and my business, the more successful my business came, the more calm and peaceful and joyful I became, and the less hustle and grind I did. I'm all about hard work, I'm all about hustle, but I don't like the word grind. I think that's only for coffee beans. So, that's the last thing. So, comments, I'm open to questions, thoughts, feedback. Yes, sir?
You glanced over sales, but you alluded that you were a bit versed in that. Is there a particular lesson or person who's you admire in sales, or how do you get that sale when you know, how do you go about that?
Yeah, good question. It's funny you say that, because I had some natural stuff with sales, but then it's like, how do I go to the next level? How do I just basic sales skills? And actually the company that I was with at the time sent me to a Tom Hopkins sales course. I don't know if everybody remembers Tom's long, it's very old. I mean, we're talking back in the 80s. Okay?
Got a couple of his books.
They're good stuff. So there are people who are very good sales professionals. I think there's a part of, I don't want to say sales tactics per se, but when I think about how and why I've been good in sales, yes, you have to close. There's the how to open. There's all some of those strategies, which I agree, getting some of those books or even just listening to some podcasts. There are a lot of good sales podcasts out there. But I think really ultimately about sales, it is persistence. It is follow-up. A lot of people don't, you know, sometimes it takes 7 or 8 times to follow up. So a lot of people don't follow up. You have to have good systems in place to make sure you are following up. It is the persistence. But at the end of the day, people have to know, like, and trust you. It's building relationships. When I moved from the credit card company that I was with, and a year and a half ago, I moved away from them because I just couldn't continue to sell the product because I didn't believe in the company with all of the change in culture and stuff they were doing with pricing. I had, in the last year and a half, there probably been close to 100 business owners that I have moved over from that other company to the current company that I work with in credit card processing, because I continue to do that industry because I work too hard for it. I'm going to continue to do it. The reason those people moved over is because they liked and trusted me. I did a good job for them, and there was the no like and trust factor. They didn't care about the company. It was about me and the relationship that they trusted with me. And that happens a lot of times when you have people that are in sales. You can move companies, but it's the relationship that their people are buying you, so that the more you can build trust with them. Another book that I read a long time ago was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. You know, it is so true. They're oldies but goodies. And you know what? All the new books that are out there, they're just a rewrite version of those old goodies, really. They're there. So, and they're easy ones to get on Audible or, you know, rent from the library or anything you might want to do with that. So does that give you some ideas?
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
You read John Acuff's J-O-N Acuff soundtracks?
I have not.
It talks about what we're telling ourselves and to recognize what we're telling and to replace the soundtrack with a new soundtrack.
Yes, and I've not heard it in that way, but definitely the mindset, the lies that we tell ourselves and the self-talk and the self. There's a Shad Helmstetter wrote a book a long time ago called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. So it's a lot of the same thought process because we've all created tapes. There's cassette tapes or CDs or whatever you want to call them now, that are playing in our head, and we created them ourselves as well as we got them in our environment, and they're hardwired, and you can change them, and you can change them very quickly. You can do it with hypnosis, you can do it with meditation, you can do it with affirmations. It depends on how deep that crease is, how deep that track is, but the more you shift that, and a lot of it was taking time to do that meditation and some of the visualizations, and we're all made of energy. And when our energy is in the right place, we attract the like energy to us. And that really is within ourselves internally, as well as what we attract to us as far as business.
We just recently talked about that, about the law of attraction and how impactful that can be, especially if you are not in a great place.
Right.
And being able to flip that switch and be open to people who are going to come into your life or business opportunities because you open yourself up to them.
Right. I'm sorry, just swallowed my water wrong. I have a quick story to go with that, if you don't mind. And it's become actually now a regular practice, both in the mornings as well as just sometimes during the day. It kind of goes back to those emotional peaks and valleys. So remember when I said I went to my mom's and just hung out there for a month, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I've never thought of myself as an ungrateful person, but I would accomplish something, then I was going for the next one. And I'd accomplish something and I was going for the next one. So there was that, right? And I couldn't figure out, when I went to my mom's, I was at a point because I was doing all this stuff with network marketing. I said I was in a challenging place. Financially, I was counting the change on the floorboard of my car to put gas in the car. Everything was challenging. Everything was challenging in my life. I said, I got to figure out how to do something different. So I went to my mom's down at Harlan County Reservoir, my peaceful, happy place. And I got just a plain old spiral notebook, like you get for college and high school and stuff, right? Those notebooks have 25 lines on them. And it was the 1st of July. And I sat down with my cup of coffee out on her deck, listening to the birds, and just a beautiful time of year, and just wrote down 25 things that I was grateful for. And I did that for 31 days in a row. Have you thought, it's hard to sometimes come up with 25 things, let alone do it for 31 days in a row. Now, did I repeat some of the same ones? Yes, but sometimes at that point in life, it was like I have 10 fingers and 10 toes. I have my health. The birds are singing. The sun is shining. I have a roof over my head. I had to get down here because everything else was a shit show. It was bad. So the end of July, I'm talking to a friend of mine in Omaha and just saying, I'm probably going to have to just go get a job. And that was a hard thing for me to get a job because I'd been self-employed for over 30 years. I'm not very employable. I'm used to being independent. And there was probably a pride thing because I was that Mary Kay girl. I'd had all those Cadillacs. I'd had all that. So my pride got in the way. I also said, I'm 50-something, and who in the heck is going to hire me? So I had all this self-talk going on in my head, right? The things we create that are barriers that are not really barriers. And I interviewed for this company selling credit card processing. And probably what was the thing that kicked in was because I didn't have any business-to-business contacts. I'd been selling to ladies that had skin. That was everybody. But anyway, so they set appointments for me. And I didn't know anything about credit card processing, but they set the appointments, and I was just going out and doing what they told me. And I started making money right away. And I was able to make my car payment and have a little money for gas and groceries, and I was getting back on my feet. And I went, what the heck happened here? I'm over here in an industry that I've put 30 plus years in, that I know, and nothing was working. I go over here into an industry I knew nothing about, and I started making money. The difference was I shifted my energy. I was working for a desperation point over here, and I shifted over to a gratitude place that I continued to write my gratitudes down every morning, and so I worked from that gratitude space. You can feel when someone's desperate if they're going to sell you. You can feel if someone's desperate. You can feel if you're in trouble when you walk in the room with your spouse. We can feel that energy. And so I started getting my confidence back and having that happy energy, and then pretty soon the confidence came. They didn't know what hit them. I was closing everything, and not because I'm a closer, it was because it was that confidence and the trust I was building and carrying and portraying over to them. So that's my mantra every morning. That's my quiet time. That's how I get myself centered. And when I don't do my quiet time, and most of the time, sometimes in the mornings I have to get out the door fast, it's 5 minutes, but sometimes it's an hour. But I know that when I'm centered that way every single morning, that's when the day goes great. And it goes from there. So then I'm building coaching business. I left my credit card company. I'm doing coaching. I was collecting unemployment, so there was still I kind of went to some stuff like this as far as finances again, right? You know, and every sometimes paying the bills would rise and fall on any particular sale or getting a coaching client or whatever. So I had to make sure I managed that gratitude place. And I remember one time there was a networking event on a Monday night over at Grata. And I talked to someone that afternoon, and they just decided they weren't going to move forward right away with coaching. And I really thought that one was going to move forward, and I went, oh, you know? So I learned from someone, they said, well, actually it was a personal trainer friend of mine. She said, she would do this when we were talking with other things that were going on in my life. She said, give me 10 things you're grateful for. So I remembered that. So I started at that moment, sitting in front of Grata, I wrote down 10 things I was grateful for. And she would tell me sometimes, well, give me 10 more, because she could see a difference when my energy changed. And I didn't realize what she was doing, but then I figured it out. So I wrote down 10 things I was grateful for. Nothing shifted. Wrote down 10 more. Yeah. That night I had to get to 40. I had to get to 40, but I had to go put on my happy face at that event. So that's why I had to write 40, is because I had to put my happy face on. In any other scenario, I maybe would have gone home, just let it go, and got up the next morning, and it's you know, today's a great day for a new day, and let's just start fresh the next morning. Because a lot of times that happens. You just everything looks bad at night, or you know, at the end of the day. You know, start fresh the next morning. But that was how I shifted my energy. And I think whenever you have those things happen, I have learned that if I find myself getting that place, I don't make a sales call. I don't pursue anything to grow my business that's with regard to people contact that might be a sale, because I know my energy is in the wrong place. I walk away. I walk away to gratitudes. That I had to do because I had to go show up. But I'll walk away to just go take a walk. Go spend time with the kids and grandkids. Just walk away. Talk to a realtor. They'll say every time they go on vacation, the phone rings. I've learned every time I walk away, because I've diverted my energy to something positive and something that brings me joy. There was one time when my son was young, you know, he was one of the hard ones to raise. There was one time I wanted to just kill him. I was so mad at him. I love to cook, so I just went and started cooking. I shifted my energy to the joy of cooking, then I could come back and be a better mom and be present instead of being so mad. So you see where I'm going with shifting your energy? Go do something different and shift it, and then come back to where you were going. All the difference in the world.
And all of that gauges too on being self-aware, right?
Correct.
And we talk a lot about that when we talk to people who do our focus coaching, and we do strengths-based, and knowing where your talents are and being self-aware of when you are at your best, all
Correct.
cylinders are rolling,
Yeah.
and when you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's times where we can be more self-aware, and then other times where it can be a struggle for
Yeah.
us.
And I think that's also in how you structure your day. People will say, I'm a night person, and they can be very productive at night. I don't know, I'm in bed, and I'm falling asleep at the couch at 9 o'clock. So I know my best energies in the morning, so that's when I do the more challenging things I need to do. And then you can coast the rest of the day, or whatever works with your energy for the day, align your schedule the same way.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
I have a comment about the calendar.
Yes.
About time. We have a lot of clients that have really great intentions. They block off the time, and then they get in the habit of not honoring what they put on their calendar and
Yes.
allowing other things to come up. And what advice do you have about getting in the right mindset to honor what you put on your calendar?
Well, I think usually what happens is people are so busy working in the business, they're not working on the business.
Yeah.
You're really just a glorified employee. You say you're a business owner, but no, you're not. You have to work. And if you are, so sometimes you have to look like, well, if I don't do this, I'm going to keep working 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I'm not going to have the revenue that I want. I'm not going to grow and scale the company. Usually it's not, that task right there is not going to align with where you want to be down here. So the gap has to be filled in, and you have to, if you cannot honor your commitment to yourself, you have to put, and I don't want to say this in a selfish way, but people who are business owners a lot of times are givers, they're helpers, they want to do things like that, but you have to save yourself first. I had to save myself first before I could help my kids and be the mom I needed to be. You have to save yourself first and allow that time to save the business. So it's a mindset shift that you have to adjust and be willing to, and it's really about boundaries, and it's really about respecting yourself. And what is the self-talk and the self-stuff that goes on around that? Because if you're not going to respect yourself and your business enough to schedule and honor that time with yourself, nothing's going to change. That's the bluntness of it, I remember a story back in my Mary Kay days where this one woman was talking about her husband wasn't supportive of her business. She's working a full-time job, so she's taking away time from the family to go and grow her business. What a lot of entrepreneurs are doing, right? She goes, my husband just isn't supportive. And he once asked her, and she said, well, why should I be supportive of your business? He goes, any little distraction, any little thing that comes your way, you're not even treating your business like a business, so why should I respect it if you're not going to respect it? Oh, the kids want this, or I want to stay here and eat popcorn and movie with the kids. We don't realize the walking, living, talking, breathing example we are to people. It's what they catch. It's not what we say. And we're influencing people by every single thing that we do, especially our kids and our grandkids. If they don't see us honor our commitment with our business, if they don't see us honor those things, they're not going to catch that work ethic. My kids have watched me go from the divorce, and they've watched me come from starting over, literally. I mean, the moving van was way bigger than the stuff I was allowed to bring when I moved. I've started over with a career. I've started over with vehicles, because I had Mary Kay cars. I had to go buy a car after 30 years. I didn't even know what to do for a car, and because of bankruptcy and my credit, I won't even tell you what the car scenario was like to try to even get a vehicle. So starting over financially, starting over physically with even a home and having a residence and furniture, starting over emotionally, I mean, every single bit of my life, I didn't even think about this. Every single bit of my life, I started over in 2008. But if I didn't, all of it not only was for me to get on my feet, but it was also to be that example for both of my kids, especially to my daughter as a woman. But I couldn't be the mom that they deserved me to be unless I did that. And that's what motivated me. That's what drove me to do it. So then I kind of go back to that client you're talking about, why are they doing what they're doing? I think a lot of times we do what we do because it's because of what everybody else expects of us. What lights you up? What lights you up and gets you excited? Because what lights you up and gets you excited is usually what makes you very profitable.
Because that's what you're the best at,
Exactly.
the most passionate about.
Exactly. Exactly. And it doesn't feel like it's work. You have to have those boundaries within your schedule, but it doesn't feel like it's work. I get to do this today. You should not be dreading Sunday nights. You should not be like, I can't wait till it's Friday. Every day should be a great day of the week. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for sharing your story.
My pleasure. Sorry about the emotions.
No, that's part of your journey. It was a big part of your journey. So I appreciate you sharing that, and thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.